positively excited about tonight's broadcast. DeMario is someone that I've known for a couple of years now, right? It's been
Yeah.
a few
Yes, ma'am.
years.
It's definitely been a few.
Yeah, so welcome for those who are joining us on Facebook. Thank you for those who have joined us on Instagram. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're not going to prolong the time. Um, if you know what city and state you are from, if you could go ahead and add that in the comment section. We want to hear from you on tonight. We are not talking at you, we are talking with you. And so we're so grateful that you have joined us. I want to introduce my special guest for this evening, someone that I met. Man, it's been, how many years has it been, DeMario, since we've known each other?
Little,
Yeah, we've known each other for about maybe 2 years.
going on 3 soon.
Yeah. So my special guest is DeMario. He is from Miami, Florida, Friars Point, Mississippi. So you're gonna hear a little bit of that accent when he talks. He currently resides in Homestead, Florida, where he has three beautiful kids that he co-parents. He's also the owner of I Ride Company. And I know that when he comes to speak, he'll be able to share a little bit more about that. So without further ado, hey.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm
Hi.
good. I'm doing very well on tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited to have you and have you share. Just one thing logistically, it looks like you're frozen on Instagram.
Okay, let me try to get that situated.
Okay, so it's like we see like a hand and then that's it.
Okay.
So let's get that sorted out and then we will go ahead and get started. I see some of my locals, my normal crew. Soar Tribe is on tonight. Miss Jackson is on. When Women Collab is on. Dope Chicks is on. The Real Sonia is on. We have Alex on. Mike is on. Larry is on. Thank you all so much for joining on tonight. Do me a favor, tag, like, and share. And then most importantly, we want you all to comment. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your feedback. It's essential for the growth of for us all, because if you have a question, it's probably because there are several of us who may have the same question or thought. So, are you straight, DeMario?
I think I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties. I'm requesting to go into the room. I'm not sure if it's
Okay.
letting me in.
So let me see. I'm sorry, you guys. All right. Accepted. Did that work?
I'm still seeing a little delay on my end on Instagram.
Okay. I just invited you. See if that works.
Okay, so let me get out of this.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
That's how it goes sometimes. Instagram is not as it sometimes it gives you a little bit of trouble when it comes to adding folks in, but that's no worries there. I think that the volume is on so that they'll be able to hear you even though they can't see you. We're just gonna move forward. It's gonna be fine, and if we can get you added at some point to Instagram, we'll get you added, and if not, then we'll make it do what it do.
Sounds okay.
So are you logged into Instagram now where you can view it?
Me, yes, I am.
Okay.
Here. So it says you invited me into the room.
Wait, so accept that and see if that works. Great. Okay, so just turn down your volume and I think we'll be all set.
We're good to go.
Outstanding. Okay, so DeMario.
Yes, ma'am.
Let the people know, how is it that you and I met? Tell us the story.
Social media is a wonderful tool. It connects people from all over the world. Mm-hmm. So I was on Facebook, I believe it was Facebook, and I saw these amazing messages coming from this wonderful host we have here, Miss Dixon. a lot of scriptures about God, talking about life coaching, very positive, all positive. And I was attracted to the energy. During that time, I was going through a lot of life, and God is very particular about the people he puts in your life. So I started following Miss Dixon, and I jumped on a few of your lives. And I took a lot from it. Shortly after that, I reached out to you once I found out that you were a life coach. And that's how we started. That's how we met. So, just Facebook, being in the right place at the right time, and just, the positive messages you were putting out.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, it's funny because sometimes when you do what I do in terms of my assignment to just share like the love of Christ and to be transparent and, with videos and different things like that, sometimes you do wonder, like, are people getting it? Like, are they hearing, you know what I'm saying? Like, are they hearing it? So when DeMario reached out to me, he doesn't know this, but he was one of the first people that I actually helped in terms of life coaching. And so tell them a little bit about what that conversation was about and what were you trying to accomplish when you first signed up for the life coaching sessions?
So with me, it was just being all over the place and just honestly just being a mess and just trying to get a better understanding of self. First of all, full transparency, Miss Dixon does not play. But when I tell you it is all love, it is all love. She's going to have those hard conversations with you that you absolutely need to hear and just make you look in the mirror and have a real conversation with yourself. So it was what full transparency. It was one of the first life coaching sessions that I went into as well. I just went looking for a better way. I wasn't figuring out a few things on my own, and I wanted to reach out, to you and just get a little bit more guidance on making the best directions and steps for my life.
And so, okay, you reached out to me, and the next step was for us to sign up to sit down and to go through our life coaching sessions. And at the time, I'm sure you don't mind me sharing, you were in a relationship.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
long were you in that relationship?
I was in that particular relationship going about 10 years. So it was a long one. It was a long
So
one.
he was in a relationship for 10 years. And when he first approached me, his request was, this is what I would like to do. I would like to set up life coaching sessions for me and my partner. I want us to have some dialogue. I really want to see if this is the relationship that I want to be with for the rest of my life. You had gotten to a place where, and I don't want to speak for you, but you were questioning if it was something that was benefiting you. And so talk a little bit about how that struggle was and what your mindset was at that time.
During that time, it was one of the things where I was just time. So I was constantly thinking about time. And one thing I've always said, I never wanted to have somebody wake up next to me and we're much older, in our late 60s, 70s, and that person regrets choosing me or regrets being with me.
Mm,
One of those things where we're getting to the point in the relationship where a lot of it was me being selfishly thinking about myself. I'm going to be fully transparent, but also I was thinking about her as well. I
mm-hmm,
didn't want to be a regret later in her life, and I kind of started to feel like I was in the way
mm.
her true happiness. So, and that was one thing. We were pretty happy together. We were, but I don't think we were ever truly happy. So that during that time, I was trying to figure out, is this something that I hold on to selfishly, knowing that the other person may not be happy, or I'm not happy? I didn't know why I was hanging on anymore.
And so talk to me a little bit about that, where you said, I didn't want to be the reason why she wakes up pretty much one day and is like, man, I hate your guts. That's essentially what you were saying. So,
Absolutely.
so when we think about toxic relationships, right? Like, explain to me what that looked like in your situation and how you were able to identify that's what it was, because y'all was together for a long time.
Yes, we were. Yes, we were. So
So talk about that a little bit.
first of all, dating in your 20s is a little hard anyways. Getting married in your 20s is a lot harder. And I was a mess. And I'm in full transparency. I'm glad for the platform to get on here. I was an absolute mess. So Self accountability, I was not doing the things I was supposed to do as a boyfriend, let alone as a husband. So I hate to say things like I didn't know any better because I knew better. I just chose not to do better. And it was a struggle for me. Knowing better and still not doing better, it was a big struggle for me. And when you truly care about somebody, you get to the point where you don't want to be the reason you continuously hurt them, and you don't
Mm.
hurt yourself in hurting them. So just again, I was a mess. I was young, didn't know no better. Just
So the issue is you. I'm
some
asking.
parts of it. That's a fair question. Some parts of it was me. I'm going to take responsibility for my parts. Here we go. I was a part in the toxicity, so I added my part to it as well. So yes,
Hmm.
so I want point.
So who was the one that said, okay, enough is enough. It's time to change.
So this situation came to a head. So it's one of those things where God is a very important thing in my life, and God guides me in a lot of things that I do. And oftentimes I make the decision to be hard headed, and God will show me who God is every time. So we got to a point where things were just getting very toxic between us, just dealing with other people while dealing with each other in a relationship. And it's an uncomfortable feeling for anybody, not feeling like you're enough for that person, or why are you seeing this guy? And I'm sure on her regards, why are you seeing this other girl? And we're supposed to be a thing. It
So
was just,
y'all was dating each other. I was dating other people while y'all was dating.
yeah, we ran into that issue a few times. So we were dating each other and dating other people and never really knowing how to break it off with each other, but entertaining other people. So it came to a head, and we just had a really, really bad situation. And God was like, this is it. And then, we ended up out of that situation, and it was hard. It was hard again, 10 years, the kids, building a lifestyle. And just being a man, one thing I learned, and it's a toxic trait that I had to address in myself, I didn't really know how to lose, even though I was losing. So I didn't want to lose.
Mm.
I had already lost. So I'm holding on to a relationship that had been gone a long time ago or dead a long time ago, but just this competitive nature, this toxic trait that I want to fight and hold on to a relationship that was gone a while ago.
So it's a situation where you didn't want her to be with somebody else, but you didn't necessarily want to be with her.
We kind of ran into that situation. And again, and I'm glad this topic is, we're talking about toxic traits. I didn't know. So most of the toxicity came from me because I dated other women, right? And then
Mm.
for some odd reason, I ended up back in the situation I was in. I didn't really know how to really let go. So then here I am dragging other people into my life. They're falling for me. Things are going great. Then I'm like, hey, listen, you're an amazing person, but I got to get back over here with old girl. So it's like I just didn't know how to let go. And then I end up having, instead of one broken heart, I have a new broken heart with somebody who came into the situation just innocently, not knowing what was going on, because I convinced myself I was done until it was time for me to actually heal and do the things to be done.
So, what do you think was the thing? Because I want somebody who's dealing with this tonight to really have a sense of a path moving forward, right? What was the thing that kept you there all those years, even though you knew that this was not the person that you really should be with?
See, I wasn't sure about that. It took me to get on the outside of it for whatever, whether it was me being forced
Mm.
on the outside of it, she being done with all of my shenanigans. I didn't see as much as I saw being on the outside looking in. So for anybody who's listening to this, one thing I can really push, just be honest with yourself. A hard truth with self will help you realize this. I knew we weren't compatible. That I knew from the jump. I always knew that
Mm.
she probably wanted somebody who was a little bit more mature, somebody who's a bit older, just a little bit more seasoned than I was. I was a younger guy figuring things out, and I knew that from the jump. So I lied to myself and convinced myself that things would be okay. And lying to yourself will come back and
But
bite you.
not even that. But not only did you lie to yourself, but you were lying to her and
Absolutely.
convincing her. And so this is what I want to pull out of this situation. And, I think that there's a lot of responsibility that goes around in these types of situations, because you really were showing her who you were, but she allowed you to continue to come back. And so that's where I want people to understand that you have the power to say, enough is enough. I am not allowing you back into my space. And I know sometimes it's a little bit more difficult when you have like children, for example, if you have relationship with someone and you have other dynamics that are involved, it might be a business that you all have together, you might have a house together, and so you make you continue to make excuses why you can't move on, right? Because where am I going to live? We split the mortgage, both ways, or the lease is in their name, the car is in their name. But what I would encourage people to think about is, what are you losing by keeping this toxicity in your life? And at a certain point, you got to put on your big girl panties, or your big boy drawers, and you have to say to yourself, if I have to start from scratch to gain my life back, if I have to make this sacrifice now to gain my life back, then do that. I mean, I was in a situation where the mortgage was in my name, but me and this gentleman were living together. And I knew when I was like, you got to go, what that meant. I had to pay all the bills by myself. And for a while, that was the reason why I kept the situation the way that it was. But at a certain point, I had to realize that I didn't do it just for me, but I had children who were looking at me. And what example was I going to set to my kids if I continue to allow a person to come in and out that I know is disrespecting me, and that is not the one that's meant for me, but I'm just using them for a paycheck? And so those are the things that we have to consider when it comes to those hard situations. And one thing about you, DeMario, that I really commend is that you did the work, right? You did the work. I remember you coming to me and you saying, listen, I want to do sessions with just me and you. I want you to do sessions with you and her. And then I want us to come together and do sessions together to see if this is really going to work out. And I say all that to say that, listen, people, therapy is a thing. Life coaching is a thing. And so, you have these tools out there to really identify compatibility, because sometimes, like you said, from the outside looking in is a different lens than from the inside. There have been times where I've been that person where other people's like, girl, why are you doing this? But because you're so close to it, you can't really see, what's happening. And so what I want to know from you, DeMario, is, what was that thing that allowed you to break free? How did you, what happened that you were like, okay, enough is enough?
I decided I wanted better for both of us. And that was a
Mm,
very hard decision. It was because kids are involved. I'm so glad you talked about that.
yeah.
Mortgages, all these things are involved. And to be fully transparent, with when the split happened, I lost everything. I mean, everything. I can't even describe to you what I mean when I say I lost everything. But in losing everything, I gained so much more. So I gained the level of peace. I gained the level of understanding. And most of all, I knew for a fact we were done. It was the first time I ever like knew we were done, done for real, for real.
But how did you know?
I cried and I prayed. So I was like, God, again, keep in mind, I lost everything. Everything was gone. The kids was gone. She was gone. Everything was gone. Furniture gone. Everything was gone. And I cried and I prayed. Right. So, I just thank God, and losing everything. I lost my entire family that I had built over 10 years. Right. I lost, kids that I grew to try to be their father, that I no longer have a relationship in that regards, and I still told God thank you anyways. And I literally cried in the midst of all of it. I didn't even know how the lights was going to stay on, right? I didn't know where I was coming or going. I just remember being on my knees in my living room again with no furniture and just thanking God for it all. And I'm like, God, thank you, because again, we pray and we talk to God on a regular basis, and we ask God to show us these things, reveal these things, remove certain people from our lives. And when God does those things, we get upset with God because we don't want to let go of Ray Ray or Pookie or whoever she is, right? We don't want to let go of these people. And then God is like, I have something better for you and that person.
Mm-hmm.
So how did I know? God told me, and I'm going to be as transparent as possible. In the midst of my tears, my stomach hurting, me not understanding, just God was like, this is it. You're done. We move. Life starts here and you move on from here.
So if she were to call you tomorrow and say, listen, let's try this thing again, what's going to stop you from
Me
saying,
and
let's do it?
me and a close friend of mine, me and her, we talk on a regular basis, and she asks me this question: "What's I'm a different person now." So we've had some time between us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I took my healing journey very serious, and I take my relationship with God very serious. No matter how much we loved each other, no matter how much we tried or whatever, I would say this with the most confidence in the world: God wasn't in that relationship for us to make it work. So it was
Mm-hmm.
a
That's so
relationship.
good.
Being far removed from God, you're being much closer to chaos. So what keeps me from those? And listen, I was ready for this question. Those lonely nights, that missing that person, because I've been by myself for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you away from that? I understand that God wanted something more for me. And as a man, I understand God wanted something more for her. So again, at some point I want to get married again and dating and just getting out there, really want to get married again, but now I have a better understanding of marriage and my role as a husband within the marriage. I have to follow God in order for me to lead in a marriage, and my wife has to be willing to follow me, because if you're not equally yoked, there ain't no crying, begging, nothing I can do to make this relationship work. And we're not equally yoked and we're not, doing things we're supposed to do, is not going to work. So if she calls me tomorrow, I'll respectfully decline. And we don't talk much. And we keep it short and about our daughter. That's all we talk about. And we don't even talk. We text about our daughter. That was the thing that we needed, or I needed. I can't speak for her in my healing journey, because there was a time where I couldn't hear her voice. I actively avoided her. We live in a small town. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
time where if I saw her at the gas station, I'm going to get gas at another gas station, because I had to put that space between us, to put that space between us.
That's really good, and that's really powerful, because you have to know yourself, right? There were times I remember when I was getting over. I had just broken up with my ex fiance, and he would still reach out, and I would text him back, but I would not pick up that phone, because I knew if I picked up that phone and heard that deep voice, baby, it was a wrap. I would have fell right back into the trap. And so you have to learn, us as singles have to learn the things that trip us up and pay attention to those things. And one of the things I appreciate about our sessions, our life coaching sessions, DeMario, is that we went there. We talked about, because the other person, I happen to learn and know, amazing woman, beautiful woman, talented woman. We're not talking about some crazy, chicken head type of person. It goes to show you, like what you said, because God was not in it, it could never work. And so for some of us who continue to go back to these relationships over and over and over again, and it does not work, you're breaking up to make up, you're breaking up to make up, perhaps it's because God was never in it. And so we have to come to terms with what God is truly saying about us, and embrace where God is taking us, and allow him to do his good old work. And I appreciate that you were committed to the work. I mean, we would get off the phone and I would say, okay, this is your homework for this week. This is what I want you to ponder on this week. And there, I know that there was some, we went deep, we went back to your past. We went back to some things that were triggers. We went back to some things that set the foundation for why you treated certain things the way that you did, and why you viewed relationships the way that you did. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, how somebody who might be watching says, it might be a man or it might be a woman out there who's like, I don't know why I do this in a relationship. Like, I don't know why, like you were saying, I didn't know why I would go from one woman to the next woman. And then now I have 3 broken hearts instead of 1 broken heart. And this is reoccurring cycle. How did your past and how did your upbringing have a correlation to the decisions that you were making in your relationships?
Broken children become broken adults. So
Baby.
broken children become broken adults. One of the things I'm just leaning on my degree in psychology, one of the things that I learned is we only can model what we see. So if you don't see healthy relationships, and again, I'm not one to point fingers at anybody. I've learned to take a bunch of accountabilities.
Yeah.
But as a child, if you don't see a man truly embracing a woman and loving a woman correctly, and you're coming from a community where it's kind of, you're popular by having a multitude of different girlfriends, right? You got a new one this week and a new one that week. None of the older people are really encouraging one relationship and growing and being healthy in this relationship. So what this is what I grew up with. And again, now I meet a person where it's like it's a little bit more required for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But none of my track record, or I have none of the substance building up to this point to even stand on the grounds to call myself somebody's husband, because I none of the leg work to understand what a boyfriend is. And again, I said it earlier, let alone what a husband should be. So I'm very adamant on that. It's very important that when you're dating somebody, you know their background before you start
Good.
talking about boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. What's your relationship like with your parents? What's your relationship like with your siblings? What is your past dating life like? Because for me, I'm always like, I can't even blame them women, because it's the same DeMario with different women,
Yeah.
different faces, with the same results. So a lot of it boils back to me. And again, like going back to, it's just, we only know what we know, and you have to learn yourself, and you have to understand your past and your trauma. So again, I didn't really see people work it out. I didn't see people problem solve. I didn't see people have real conversations. I didn't see a real relationship. So then now I'm older now. It's time for me to be in a real relationship. I revert back to high school DeMario. It's like, we're not getting along. I'm gonna have a new girlfriend next week. And that's just not appropriate. That's not what you do.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said. And I know that there's some people that might be watching that say, wow, that's me, right? But I would like to encourage you because DeMario is an example of someone who may have had um, that may have not had the right examples growing up, but somehow he was able to overcome through trial and error, right? He's not perfect,
Yes,
but
man.
he was able to overcome and get on the other side of it. And sometimes we can use our past history as a crutch. We use our past history as an excuse, or sometimes we are not even aware, right? We're not even aware of of our decisions being triggered by our past situations. There were parts of me that I remember very vividly that I made certain decisions and I subconsciously did them because I longed for the love of my father. And so I had to, through prayer, like you said, through prayer, I was able to identify that this is why you keep looking for love in all the wrong places. And ultimately, I learned that although I did not have my actual father, he taught me that he was my father. And it gave me a sense of peace. But another thing I want to talk about tonight is I would like for you to talk to the men for a minute,
Mhm.
the men that might be viewing this broadcast, that might be, player from the Himalayas and breaking hearts and, dropping names, you know, share with them some encouragement on, um, just give them some words of wisdom.
Some hard truths, right? And just as men, and we got to hold each other accountable as well. Surround yourself with men who have positive outlook on marriages and relationships.
That's good.
And one of the hardest things is, and I'm going to speak for me. I don't want to speak for, all men here. We know when we're not right. And we know when that's a good girl. And, and again, I've dated some really good girls, right? My kids' moms are great women, but I knew I was just not the best man during that time. I was not the best man for them. And I was literally in the way for all those great men who can love them. So what can I tell the men tonight? Listen, if you're not going to step up to the plate, if you know you don't have the capacity to be the man she needs, respect yourself enough, respect her enough, and move out of the way. Because one of the hardest things had to do was watch my children's mother be loved appropriately by another man
Woo.
I have to get along with for the sake of the kids. I'm going to be very honest with everybody here on that podcast. That was not, especially with my son, my daughters. My son. It was tough sledding at first, but again, he has an amazing stepfather. He really does. And the guy's a great guy. I didn't care about none of that at the beginning. Like, while you're around my son, who are you? But I had to really understand this in the healing journey and growing up, that I am not the man for my son's mom. I'm not the man for my daughter's mothers. I am not. No, I can't make myself to be. And as men, sometimes we try to make ourselves to be for the sake of the kids, for the sake of immature stuff, or sometimes it's because she wants us to be. So we try to be because she wants us to be, and we know we can't. So what can I tell you as a man? Again, if you know that you cannot, you came to an honest decision. Time is it's our most precious resource. Don't waste that girl's time and don't waste yours. Because if you're not honest with her and yourself, you're going to build a toxic relationship that's filled with a lot of hate and a lot of mixed emotions. Let her go.
Woo. That's heavy.
Let her
Step
go.
aside if you're not ready to court her properly, if you're not ready to date her properly, or women, step aside if you're not ready to court him properly, if you're not ready to date him properly, then step aside. And here is this, that's a mature statement, and a lot of people don't do that, right? But this is where you have to know, as the person who is involved with them, that you have the power to make that decision for yourself. Sometimes we wait for the other person to end it, to break things off, but you have the power to say, this is enough, I've had enough. And the real Sonia says sometimes people know the issue but don't want to deal with it because it's too painful. And I'm glad you said that, because that's something that me and DeMario went through
Yes, we
when
did.
we were in our life coaching sessions, and I'm asking certain questions about his past, about his childhood, about the decisions. It was interesting. I mean, talk about that a little bit. Those things that you was trying to not even touch on in
Got
our
you. And I
life
read the
coaching
comment as
sessions.
well, and it is painful. And again, we're human, and we get attached to certain things, and sometimes we get attached to the things that we're not supposed to get attached to. And I
Yeah.
can't describe to you enough. I've been through that pain, but I can promise you this: on the other side of pain is peace. Sometimes
Woo.
you have to let that pain go, and sometimes you just have to take it and just work your way through it. Because there's nothing more painful than to waste 10 years of your life, or to waste 10 years of somebody else's life. Because again, you guys know it's not working out, because that hurts. Like, because at the end of the day, whether I decided to leave or she decided to leave, we're still leaving behind 10 years, kids, and a whole bunch of other situations. And my kids, other kids, moms too. I'm leaving behind. We weren't going to never work. We were doing whatever we weren't supposed to be doing because we were hurt behind other situations. So no matter how you look at it, pain is going to come from somewhere. But you are responsible for the pain that you allow to continue. So that's on you. So if you allow this pain to continue, you made that decision. So you can't get upset at the results. If they're continuously lying, cheating, if they're continuously disrespecting you, cut the cancer. The best way I can put it, cut off your arm to save the rest of the body. It hurts to lose your arm. You had the arm your whole life, but it's going to save the rest of your body. Then that's what you do.
Yeah, and you said so much, and all of it is profound. Now, I want you to talk to the women for a second. Someone who has been on both sides of it, and being in a toxic relationship for 10 years is a long time. What would you say to a woman who is dealing with something similar?
And you're gonna have to take this, ladies. You have to choose you. You have to put your foot down, and you just have to know when to let him go. The hardest thing, and again, I have a deep love and admiration for my kids' moms, and I learned so much from them, but it took me to mature to understand each one of them. But as women, we have to be careful, and I'm going to be very transparent with who you lay down with, who you choose, and not know that person, because I didn't know me. So none of my kids' mom cannot say they knew me because I didn't know who I was. What I did was, and I learned this about myself, I subscribed to so many different personalities and identities to be whoever this woman needed me to be in this relationship. But at a certain time, that runs out. You can only pretend for so long. So
Mm.
you have to vet the man that you're with, and you have to be okay without being with that man if he's not meeting your standards and boundaries. That's where I was going. Set very strict standards and boundaries. And if this man does not live up to your standards and your boundaries, he is not him, sis. I have a little sister. We have this conversation all the time. It's amazing how we can give advice, but we don't know how to take advice. And
Mm.
because I would not want me 2, 3 years ago to date my sister, not
Wow.
that, because I understood who I was and who I wasn't. So you have to make sure that you understand that man and who he is, and be willing to not waste time and cut that thing off in the beginning. I listen to a lot of different motivational speakers. Love Dorsey speaks on some stuff, and you have to vet this man. Go on a couple of dates, meet his parents, meet him, see how he operates under high pressure situations. He's going to show you who he is, and once he does, you have a decision to make. I don't care if it's a year, I don't care if it's a week, I don't care if it's 2, 3 days. You have to understand you and what you want as a woman, because a lot of that dictates the relationship as well. And I'm gonna tell you this, I'm gonna end on this point. We only do what you allow us to do. So if you
Mm.
allowing him to cheat on you and bring him back,
Woo.
he's gonna keep doing it. If you allow him to talk to you any kind of way, he's going to keep doing it. And the crazy thing about it, that other girl across the street ain't going for that. And he'll end up leaving you and being with her and respecting her a whole lot more. Put your foot down, mean what you're saying, stand on your boundaries and standards.
Wow. Listen, that was so good. Again, ladies and gentlemen, you have the power. I heard him say, keep your standards high. If he will not be willing to respect you, honor you, then you have to do what's best for you. You know, you have to do, I love what he said. You have to choose you. You have to choose. I just want that to sink in, because a lot of times we are so dependent on someone else to love us so that we can love ourselves. But the power is within you. Somebody said, I have the power. I love that. Another person says, my God, woo, the subscribing to different personalities took me out. Say that again, please. I appreciate the feedback, because I believe that all of us are learning and growing in this moment. Because when we look back at some of the relationships in our past, you can honestly say, man, if I had just listened to myself, if I had listened to what the Lord said, if I hadn't ignored those red flags, I would not have wasted all these years or all these months. But the good thing about God's grace and mercy is that none of that matters now. What you have to do at this point is make a conscious decision to do what is best for you. And that is not selfish. That's self-care. It's not selfish. It's self-care. So DeMario, thank you so much for just sharing. I feel like there was a lot of light bulbs that have gone off tonight. I see people commenting, and I wish that I could pass out a microphone so everybody could share their thoughts and feedback. But I really appreciate your transparency, because I really feel like it's going to help somebody. I believe that there are several people that are trying to get out. They're trying to get out. They're trying to move on, and they just don't know how. And so I just want to ask that one last question of you. How do they get out? What do they do to get out of a toxic relationship?
The first thing you have to do is realize that you're in a toxic relationship. You have to take accountability for the toxicity that you're putting on as well, because it's a two-sided street.
Yep.
Toxic is going to meet toxic. If he's toxic, somewhere along the line, she has toxic traits as well. How do you get out? Again, we've been saying it all night. You choose you, but you have to want that too, because we're all adults here. Sometimes we like the toxic stuff. Sometimes we fantasize the toxic stuff, or we over fantasize it. We like them acting up. It gives us some kind of false sense of excitement. You have to be ready for a stable relationship. You have to be ready for a conducive relationship to growth. Anything that's not growing is dead. But you have to be mature enough to understand that, because if you don't understand that, you don't want out. The door can be wide open and you're like, oh, I can't get out of here, but you don't walk through the door, because the truth of the matter is that you don't want to walk out of the door. And again, I'm going to go back to my situation. I knew that I was out. I was done. Man, that pain we talked about, I probably experienced some of the worst pain in the world in my life, because it was like, I just didn't know what tomorrow was going to look like. But here's the beautiful thing about God. All that stuff ain't matter that day before. And it was a really hard day before, because God gave me breath and life for a new tomorrow. Every day is a new opportunity, but you have to want to get out. So I'm going to leave it there. Like, if you choose toxicity, you're staying in it. That's a choice that you're making. I know it's not easy, but you have to sit down and weigh out your good and your bads. What do you get by staying in this? Most importantly, what do you lose by staying in this? And for my parents out here, you have to think about your children. I love my stepkids. Like, I love them. And I haven't spoken to them in almost 3 years because I love them. I understood that the toxicity I was bringing to their life, and me and their mom going at it. And I always think about my kids first, my biological kids and the kids' life I was in. So a big out for me was, I was looking at those young men and my young ladies, my daughters, and I'm like, I just don't want them to see this. I had to set an example. Sometimes you need a little motivational push. Sometimes looking at your kids, you have to say, man, I have to set a better example, because they're going to end up emulating the same exact things that you're doing. Mom, you won't believe what this girl doing. I done caught her over here with this dude. Or, Mom, you won't believe I done caught this man messing around with this girl. And then if you back it up a little bit, you notice that mom and dad had the same exact patterns. Now, to the kids, but the biggest thing, you just have to want out.
And you have to make a decision that you can be the generational curse breaker. You can be the one in your family that sets the tone for something different. We have a viewer that says sometimes the nurturer within us women enable the behaviors because we think we can fix them, but it only makes them worse. The codependency enabling attraction. Let me just say this. This was a toxic trait that I had, because as a nurturer, I believe how I approach anything in life is, if it's broken, if there's a gap, I like to fix it. That's who I am. But one thing that the Holy Spirit told me one time in prayer, he said to me, Shabonda, you cannot change no man. The only person that can change the heart of a man is me. And it was such a simple statement, but it was so profound, because I was the fixer. I thought if I loved them enough, if I did enough for them, if I was there for them, if I gave them advice, and all that did was drain me, because they were taking everything that I had emotionally, and most of that really belonged to God. I want to read a scripture super quick. It's in, because we're going to pull out the word of God, because that's just who we are. And it's in, I would encourage anybody that's dealing with a toxic relationship to read about Samson and Delilah in Judges 16. I'm going to tell you right now that it really helps to illuminate a lot of the decisions that we make that are just super careless and sometimes just reckless. But I'm not going to read the whole thing. And there's I'm not going to go through everything tonight, but I just want to highlight a few pointers. I'm going to go to, chapter 16, verse 4. And it says, and it came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. We're talking about Samson here. And it says, and the lords of the Philistines came unto her and said unto her, entice him, and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee, every one of us, 1,100 pieces of silver. So essentially what this is saying is like, yo, we know that he loves you, right? We know that he loves you. So use that to your advantage to find out what his weaknesses are. And so what they did was pay her to find out his weakness. Now, the Bible says that Samson loved Delilah. The Bible did not say that Delilah loved Samson. And so a lot of us out here with the excuse, but I love him. Have you ever said that in a relationship? But I love her. It doesn't mean a hill of beans if the person does not love you back. And it's very clear in this scripture that Delilah did not love him because she was willing to get paid for them to destroy him. And so you have to be okay with identifying if they're not giving you the same type of energy that you're giving to them, then what are you doing? What are you waiting for? Because anything outside of that is going to be catastrophic. I'm going to read verse 15. And it says, and she said unto him, how can thou say, I love thee, when thine heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times and have not told me wherein thy strength lies. So she's saying to me, she's using his love for her. So what she's doing is trying to coerce him to tell her where his strength lies because she knows she got a payday waiting for her. Okay. But in the midst of that payday, he's not really giving what she wants him to give. And so she exploits his love for her. Hear me when I say this, because people will take advantage. It's just like what he was saying. I kept going back to her because she let me. If she had closed the door on it, then he would have been out in the cold well long before the 10 years had passed. And it's the same thing with this particular scripture. Samson, she was giving him red flag after red flag after red flag that these people are using her to get to him. But she exploited his love for her. Let me say this to you. Sometimes love is not enough. You can't just love the hell out of a person. Only God can change the heart of man. And so if you sitting around thinking that you're going to change her, you're going to change him, you're going to fix them, you'll be sadly mistaken. I'm going to read one last verse and then we'll be done. This is verse 18, and it says, and when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart. So finally, he breaks down and he tells her where his strength lies. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up this once, for he has showed me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and brought money in their hands. This is what I want you guys to know. Certain parts of you only belong to God. His mistake was that who he was, the sacredness of who he was, the life of consecration he was supposed to lead was between him and God. That's why the Lord didn't want him to share it to anyone else. And if you allow someone the space where God belongs, it's going to be catastrophic. It's going to be toxic. You know why? Because then they become your God. They become that person that you see, that you seek to, that you want their opinion about everything. Instead of where you would once jump on the chance to go into your prayer closet and ask God for direction, you're asking them instead. And so we cannot have ourselves in these types of relationships where we allow them into a space where only God is supposed to be. So hear me very clearly, that at the end of the day, you have to know that this is your opportunity to make the decision to move on. Me and DeMario were talking before the broadcast, and this was one of the quotes that he had shared with me, and I let you expound on it, but it says, the same thing that will make you laugh is the same thing that will make you cry. Explain a little bit about that, DeMario.
As simply as put. So, it's always funny till it's not funny no more, right? It's always cute till it's not cute no more. So that same little, oh, that's just the way he is, and it's funny till you get some years down the road and see that he or she isn't changing, and now you're crying about those things. So be careful about that. So the same things that you overlooked, the same things that you smile about, you think are a joke, be the same thing that'll bite you in the behind later. So that same ain't good man that you love today probably be the same ain't good man or woman that'll make you cry later.
Wow. So we just want to thank DeMario for just coming on tonight. I mean, this has been amazing. We had so many nuggets that were shared. Do me a favor. There might be somebody out there that you're like, they need to hear this. I want to encourage you to share this on your page. Tag the person. I see some people have tagged other people to view this broadcast, and just share this, because as I prayed about, okay, God, what should we talk about for the singles on tonight? The Lord said to me very clearly, talk about avoiding toxic relationships. This is the season where it's time for you to make the decision to change, to move in a different direction. And truth be told, God don't care about your past. He don't care about DeMario's 10 years. He just wants him free. You see what I'm saying? And so he wanted to see this side of DeMario, the person who has peace, the person who has joy, the person who's not out womenizing, the person who is in his word, who is praying. And that's all God truly wants for you, is for you to be at a place where you are free. You are truly free, and you have the ability to do so. So, DeMario, thank you so much for being on tonight. Super quick, can you tell the people how they can get in contact with you? I know that you are an entrepreneur as well. I know that people would love to hear about your business. So share just a little bit about that for us.
Really quick, you can follow me on any social medias, DeMario_Lee. I'm not super big with social media, but I'm getting it worked out. I own a ride share company. The name of the company is iRide. You can visit us online, www.iridecompany.com. We're the best in the business when it comes to airport transportation. So we give a better rate than the competitors to get you from point A to point B, and it's really good with airport transportation. So aside from that, I'm out here just trying to make the community the best I can.
Yeah, so he's out here doing big moves. He's starting can I share? Can I
You
share
can
that?
share. Please share.
Okay. He's starting a private school in the fall, guys. So be praying for him. Be praying that all things work together for the good. We just saw another case where children were slain today, and it breaks my heart to see that. But I'm encouraged by people like DeMario who are taking a chance and just doing something that will impact the children. And so I'm so excited about that. Make sure that when he posts the information for that you all support him. I'm sure that he's going to be taking donations and different things like that, because it takes a lot to start a school, particularly a private school. But we're so encouraged by that. Listen, also, as you guys know, that we shared on tonight, DeMario is not where it was 2 years ago when we met and we started our life coaching sessions. I just want you to say this really quick. I want you to share a little bit about how it changed the trajectory of your life, because I have opened the door for one-on-one life coaching sessions, and there is a small fee. It's not super expensive, but I believe it's important for you to invest in you. Tell us how the life coaching sessions changed your life.
Two things. I thank God for this woman on the other end of this podcast. I can't describe to you how much she meant to not just me, but the other parties involved as well, because we both needed a wake up call. And another thing, she needs to change her fee schedule because she is worth every
Oh,
penny. She definitely needs to change her fee schedule. So for me, it was sometimes you don't know when you're in the way. Sometimes you don't know when you're being bogged down or held down. Sometimes you really don't. Sometimes you don't understand. So when you get a chance to talk to somebody with experience, you get a chance during the homework again. Sometimes we got off the life coach and here's your homework, and I would do the homework, sucking my teeth about it. But it
mhm.
really challenged my way of thinking. So one of the best things that I can say came from is just like I had to reevaluate me and find who I was. Going back to that, subscribing to so many different personalities. Life coaching sessions with you made me really like remove all the makeup, all the paint, all the other filters. Who is DeMario? And we talked about that often. Who are you? And I would always start off describing all these things, and you always ask me again, who is DeMario? And I really didn't, 2, 3 years ago, I didn't know. I have a better understanding of who I am and where I'm going. So I highly encourage everybody. Therapy, life coaching sessions, they work. They help, like especially when you need to make tough decisions. We can't always do things on our own. It takes a village, it takes wisdom, it takes counsel. They even speak about it in the Bible. So make sure that you reach out to those counsels and you do the things that honor and serve God. So I just encourage any and everybody just to take the time and just invest in yourself.
And I did not pay him to say that, I promise. But no, I will say that I am, outside of the life coaching sessions, me and DeMario don't speak on a consistent basis, but I do check in, just every once in a while. He'll check in every once in a while just to make sure that he's still on track. But I will say that I am absolutely proud of who you are. You did the work. I know you're still a work in progress, but you have come such a long way. And I'm just honored that God would trust me to be a part of that positioning for you, and to see how you're thriving, you're growing. You are doing the things that we talked about. When you're in toxic relationships, you forget about your dreams. That all that stuff is cut off. It slows you down. It slows down your access. It slows down the ability to see the people around you who are for you. And so I'm so godly proud of where you are. And let me just say, once we did our group of sessions, there was a time where he would come back a couple months later and be like, listen, I need some more sessions.
It's
And
true.
we
This is
did
true.
that until, he got the release to say, okay, now I'm free to soar. And so if you are interested in one-on-one life coaching sessions, they're now available. You can email ShavondaRDixon@gmail.com or inbox Shavonda Dixon on Instagram or Facebook for more details. And I would love to send you some additional information. And then last but certainly not least, I have that Christian clothing line, y'all, Jesus Groupie Clothing. And so this is where you can be cute, Christian, and classy. It's more than a brand, it's a movement. So make sure you shop today. We do have a 50% off sale that's happening now. If you use Spring 23 at checkout, you'll receive 50% off your entire purchase. And the quality of our merchandise is top notch. So 50% off does not come often, but we're doing some spring cleaning. So we would love for you to be a part. So listen, thank you all so much for being with us on tonight. DeMario, thank you again. I think we'll probably have him back in a couple of months, right? If he'll have us, the words that you share, the vision that you have, Just thank you. Are there any last words you want to share before we drop?
I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for everybody watching it. And we're praying for each other. It takes all of us. We pray for each other and we take care of each other. Just us as a people, the world can be a very crazy place at times. So let's remember to take care of each other and be there for each other. Try not to judge because everybody's dealing with a different demon or fighting their own different battles. So just try to be a good, sound advice person for them and help get them where they need to go.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining in. We will see you next time.
See you next time. Good night.
Bye. See y'all.